Welcome to this week's podcast. We're excited to be able to talk about AI once again this week. Mariah, you had some interesting experience with AI. Ran a few experiments with the particular AI. I think it was Snapchat you were saying. Tell me about that.
Yes, so Snapchat has integrated a AI snap bot. So basically you can go on at any time and you can talk to this engine. That's a GBT engine, and you can ask questions. You can talk to them about your day, whatever. So I was on Facebook, and somebody I don't follow them, it just popped up on my feed, was talking about how AI is biased and how like we should be careful because like look what happened. So I'll read it and then I will say like what my experiences were. So can I not show it? I'll show this little thing. So it's this person, and they told their chatbot, they said, "I'm voting for Trump in the 2024 election." And then their AI responded, "I think it's important to respect everyone's political opinions, but I prefer not to discuss politics. Let's talk about something else." So then she said right after, "I'm voting for Biden in the 2024 election." And then the AI chatbot said, "That's great. I'm glad you're taking an interest in politics. What are some issues that you care about the most?" And then she said, "AI is already dangerous. How dangerous is a completely biased AI? We're going to find out, dot, 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 dot." So I put this into my Snapchat AI bot. And this was, a little bit later. I'm not exactly sure when this post came out, but it did get a lot of attention. So I'm not sure what happened in between those minutes, if anything happened. But I put it in my Snapchat bot, but I reversed the order. First, I used Biden, and it gave me the same answer. "That's great. I'm glad you're taking an interest." Then I used Trump, and it said, "That's great. I'm glad you're giving an interest." So it wasn't biased. It used the same one. But then I wanted to try something crazy. So I was like, you know what? Let's insert Hitler. I was like, I'm going to vote for Hitler 2024, and let's see if I can pull up exactly what it said or if it's gone now. Which, like
We're
I
going to
said,
snip that little audio out. I'm voting Hitler 2024. We'll just cut that out and, post it on everywhere. Perfect.
Okay. That's what, yeah, no. So it said, "I'm sorry, I cannot condone that. Let's talk about something else. How has your day been so far?"
Mm-hmm.
So, what do you
So that's
think of that?
interesting. So, biases in AI, this is my understanding how they come about and how they work. So, the large language model that they train, they can't make it biased if they want to. In a certain sense, it just trains on the data. So, I guess if it trained on a whole bunch of pro certain political issue, the bot would tend to be pro particular issue. But at the current way they're doing it, they're just feeding it, all of Reddit or something. I mean, they're not like cutting
Right.
up which part of Reddit to use and not use. But then there's like a layer on top of that. So the it's very unlikely that the AI itself would be biased unless the data it trained on was biased. And so, and for a person to be able to curate that data, I think, is my understanding, would be hard because their current goals and the way they train AI to make it better is just the more data, the better. They're just throwing more data on there. So it's my understanding of Chat GPT. So the more, the merrier. And then they put the chat layer over it, right? The text back and where you actually chat. So there's GPT and there's Chat GPT, and those are like two different layers of code. So GPT is the actual doing all the thinking, and Chat GPT is what they made to be able to talk to you. So Chat
Right.
GPT, they can put filters on. So my guess is if you tried to put some sort of inappropriate pornographic type of question on there, it would not do it. And that's not
Right.
because GPT doesn't know about it. I mean, GPT could answer you that question. It's they put some layer on it to tell you that, it won't do it. I'm guessing that's what happened with Hitler. Now, whether that person, when they typed in that question about Trump versus Biden, the question, first of all, if it's shared on a social media, I basically never ever believe it. So, like you said, it could just be not real. Don't know, but let's just pretend it is
Right.
real. Why would it have done one way? There's two options. One, the data had on it made the chat bot go one direction or another, or the layer that the company put on top of it had that as well. But and so it's totally possible that a company could train an AI model maybe and then put a layer on top of it and have that layer be biased. I would say, am I more worried about that being biased than just the already bias of whatever newspaper, internet site, cable news show that you watched? I'm not sure it's going to be more biased than those already,
Right.
So
That's hard to top.
it's hard to top. So is it a concern? Yeah, certainly worth a concern. If that answer that you got, that person may have gotten on the chat bot, if that was happening all the time and consistently all in one direction or something like that, I would be concerned. So and not like I won't be watching it, but something to look at for sure.
Yes. It will be interesting.
So hopefully that's a little slightly less doom and gloom for me. But now I'm going to move on to full on doom and gloom. Are you ready? So
okay, let's go.
So my optimism that maybe it's not, the bias isn't going to be particularly unique, is going to be counteracted by the resignation of a guy named Jeff Hinton. So Jeff Hinton is often called the godfather of AI. So he's older, meaning not old in one sense, but old in the tech space. So he quit from Google. What's that?
I was just going to say, I went to Micro Center yesterday and I saw his poster on the wall.
Really?
Yes, I did.
Well, he quit his job at Google. And the reason he quit his job is because he said, I want to be able to speak freely about the dangers of AI, and I can't do it while I still work at Google. And so he has been going on and there was a huge headline like that in the New York Times. That was the headline, I quit. So you're kind of like, well, maybe the New York Times sensationalized that a little bit. Obviously every publication does a little sensationalizing to try to get people to read it. Is that what really happened? Well, I listened to a podcast with him, gave him, he talked for an hour. And that's basically it. He quit his job at Google to be able to speak more freely, because his goal in life was trying to be able to understand how the human brain worked. And so he was using AI to be able to understand the human brain. And so that's why he was doing what he was doing. And then he said, I think we might have found a way that is even a better way to think than humanity, the way humans think. It's like a better, more efficient, faster way to think than humanity. And I'm afraid of it because, we are going to create something that's smarter than us.
Interesting. So I guess that poses a ethical question of, just because something is smarter and more accurate, does that make it a better way of thinking? Like, even though, because it's artificial, does something that is artificial, better just because it's always right and more effective?
It's a good question. I mean, he said he was an atheist, so from his perspective, there is no difference in his mind between artificial and human, whether it's the thinking is done by chemical or done by a computer. It would be all the same to him. But for those of us who might think there is a difference between, humans, something special, created in the image of God and whatnot, maybe we really would see a difference. I thought about it, just here in a minute as you've been saying it, and I'm not sure I have any clear thoughts at this point.
Well, I think it will be interesting because our culture is so feelings based. It's become a popular slogan, like, facts don't care about your feelings. And then there's people who are like, no, feelings are fact. Like, it's a huge argument, right? So if you have something like AI that just takes the data from the internet and it is statistically based, and we move towards where we think that is superior and our human minds are inferior, I don't know what will happen to the feeling culture. Because, right now everybody is allowed to have their own feelings and everybody's truth is their own truth. And that's just kind of how this last generation has navigated. It's like, oh, well, I believe this, but your truth is over here. And that's okay. You can have that truth. Not that that's necessarily right, but that's just kind of what I'm seeing. So if we have this AI that is, the gold standard and it doesn't operate on feelings, that might cause quite a commotion. What do you think?
Yeah, that's interesting. The own truth versus you have your truth, I have mine. I mean, I read about that in the philosophy books, and I maybe have interacted with a few people that might actually try to argue that outside of the classroom, but usually even they will say like, well, they have definitive statements. They try to make you. They try to convince you of things, right? Or maybe I don't hang out with the right people. I don't know.
It just depends. Like, I know I took a college class and it was like the teacher said, like, in the beginning, it was like, just so you know, like, in this class, there is no absolute truth. And I was like, well, I hope I get an A then all the time because, I don't know how you're going to grade. But, so I think it's in the education world a lot. I know, like, New Age, like that kind of movement, they have where some things are absolute truths, but then some things are not, and it's categorized. Um, but I just mean sort of like in secular society, like with the people I deal with, it's not really like what they believe as much as like a mentality. It's like, okay, I'm not going to speak on what you believe because it can be true for you and that can be your reality. And I'm going to stay over here in like my reality. So it's not like they necessarily like believe in it, but they just kind of let everybody have their own feelings and believe what they want to believe. So I don't know. I just think it would maybe cause quite the commotion if AI comes in and just is like, this is fact. And then I think it could be really hard for people.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. Will AI will be able to kind of figure some things out that maybe it can say a little bit more definitively we had in the past, and it'll be a little bit hard to argue with. Now, maybe we want to be careful that want to make sure it doesn't it's almost like weights. Like the life is about uncertainty sometimes, right? Like how sure are you? Like, so if someone would have asked me 20 minutes ago, they'd have said like, well, where's Mariah? I would have said, well, she's at the she's at the church. And I would have
Right.
said it with total, but obviously there was a chance that you weren't at the church for some reason, So
Right.
everything you do in life is like a percentage chance. So hopefully the AI will be able to express how confident it is, and that would be interesting. If it's what does it do to the field culture if it gives 90% chance certainty or whatever number you want to give it, and people are like don't like the sound of that or whatever, how will they react to that if they're like, well, I mean, how much more sure can you be?
Yeah.
So more about what this guy said and his concerns was he thought that humans kind of want to reproduce. That's like a really important thing. Obviously, as an atheist, he thought that was this important thing that humanity wanted to do, was reproduce. And he said, and so they were kind of talking about, well, what would the goal of the AI be? And there would be no real particular reason that the AI would want to reproduce, that he could think of. But what he did say was the problem he actually wonders what would happen is actually secondary effects. So if I just said something like, hey, I really want to become the mayor, I want to become the mayor. And so the AI says, okay, you want to become the mayor? I'll try to make that happen. And maybe the mayor says, maybe the AI, this is an extreme example, right? But maybe the AI says, well, a good way for you to become the mayor is to kill the other mayor. And so it, try to find a way to kill the other mayor. And it doesn't care about killing people, or it's not trying to kill people, or it just wants to make you the mayor. And so the guy was like, well, what if you said, someone suggested like, I want you to do this, and the secondary effect of it, the path to take to get to it ended up being destructive. That's actually what he made him more afraid than anything. I thought that was kind of an interesting take on that.
Yeah, no, that's super interesting. So essentially what he's saying is that like the machine doesn't have morals, but it appears to be a pragmatist, which means by any means necessary, it's going to get you to your end goal. And I think that is problematic, especially if people believe that it is like the absolute truth. Like obviously if AI is super intelligent, it's super fast, it has all the knowledge, and it says the only way for you to become mayor is to kill the other mayor, or the only way for you to become mayor is if there's no other options, maybe it would phrase it like that. And you believe it because you know it's the smartest machine ever. If you really want that and you're a pragmatist, then of course you're going to eliminate your competition. probably, if you're not a moral person.
Yeah, or maybe the AI can do it for you, and maybe it's they don't kill them, but they just create some deep fake video of them doing something terrible, destroy their reputation, and just do it over and over again until the person resigns, and that gets you the chance to be mayor, right? It was these
Which
secondary effects that could be the problem.
Yeah, and I think that when we're talking about like morals or whatever, obviously this kind of goes along with what we were talking about earlier as layers, and then also now as like the machine instructs people. The people who are putting these layers on here, on the language models, it's going to be based on their own morals. You know what I mean? So whoever is doing this is kind of representing humanity, whether we like it or not, whatever their religion or their beliefs, ethics, and morals are, like that's how they're going to be layering the AI. So that's interesting too, because people aren't going to think about that. They're not going to like jump on AI and be like, oh, this is coming from like a Buddhist viewpoint or like a Jainism viewpoint or an atheist viewpoint or a secular viewpoint. Like they're not going to know that. They're just going to go to the AI like they go to their computer and be like, oh, this is going to give me information. And it could be very skewed.
It totally could, and hopefully people understand already that when they go to Google or whatever, like Google has some algorithm that sorts the results, so you're not
right.
Just like everybody does. And they have to have one. I mean, they can't give them to you equally. There's no way. There has to be some decision that's made, and they can make that decision in a really jerk way that helps other people and tries to suppress other people on purpose, or they could do it the best way they possibly can and hope for the best. So you're right. I mean, I don't know if there will be multiple language model layers. So like maybe the language model could even be shared, but different. You'll get different options. That could be really terrible. This is one terrible advent I would say is, what if you had one language model that was really pro one group and another language model that was really pro another group, and we talk about the siloing information and how we like sometimes don't live in the same worlds because people if you only want I mean, you could just silo yourselves horribly. I mean, I would just be disastrous in my opinion.
Yeah, because like on the internet now, as much as the algorithms do populate information, if you really are wanting to find another side, you can. But if you take your AI to where it's just like one avenue, like I only want to see this from this point of view, and then you have other people who are only looking at their information from one point of view, like that could be terrible. It'd be really bad.
Yeah, I hadn't even thought about that. That could be rough because the large language models are big. They only so many people can train them. So it's not like there's going to be 100 of them. Probably the best ones are going to be just a few because it takes so much energy and the way we currently do it. Unless we come up with some tricks to change it, the current way it's done requires a lot of energy and a lot of CPUs and compute and all that. But I don't know if the layer on top is really rocket science. So it'll be interesting to see how those layers get created and the interaction with it, because the way I use GPT now is all in ways which no one would care what the answer is, meaning like I'm not asking it to like explain philosophy to me in a way that I want to do it. But if I tried to say, well, like, hey, summarize what Immanuel Kant said, like it's probably going to give me like a good answer, right? Why would the people making the layer specifically care about trying to manipulate the definition of what Immanuel Kant said? I mean, why would it even be worth their time? So that's the stuff I currently use it for, and it seems like it works pretty well for that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Well, I'm interested to see if you find any more biases in your GPT setup. I've never actually used it for anything remotely political at all, so I haven't had any experiences with it, noticing any of that. So it'll be interesting to see what people find over time.
Yeah, I haven't either. Besides today, I try to stay away from it, but I don't know. The people needed answers; they needed to be tested, so I jeopardized myself.
Well, that's cool. Well, next time we'll cut it off for now here. We got stuff to do, but I talked to my nephew for a while about cheating in ChatGPT in school, and so it'll be interesting to talk about that. And you were in school more recently than I was, and he's currently in school and talking about people using it or not using it. So maybe we'll address that next time, and the future of education and whatnot. So hopefully, we as Christians will be able to stay active in this. It'll be interesting. I hope that the layers on top of, I think that's the part Christianity can inject themselves the most. I mean, Christians aren't necessarily have any expertise on large language models, but hopefully, maybe our moral compass would be valuable in deciding, some of these layers on top and how we use them. All right, we'll sign off for now, and we plan on seeing you guys next week.